I cannot believe I did not hear about this game until yesterday. And this upcoming game is called the Wayward Realms. It is on Kickstarter. It's able to be wishlisted now on Steam, and it's being created by the lead developers from Elder Scrolls Arena and Daggerfall. And because of that, it's actually supposed to be a spiritual successor to those games, obviously with more modern graphics and gameplay. Now, it's obviously still in early development. There hasn't been a ton that's come out about the game. They have posted a trailer, which I will be showing in the background footage of this video, so you can kind of see what the game's going to look like. However, the game is definitely going to be different than, most likely, the upcoming Elder Scrolls games are actually going to be by Bethesda. And that's because Skyrim and Oblivion and the more modern Elder Scrolls games, which it's honestly hard to call them modern at this point, the most recent one came out in 2011, but they have a very different philosophy than they had when they were creating games like Arena and Daggerfall. For example, in Elder Scrolls Arena, the world is infinite and continuously generating. You literally have to fast travel from town to town because of how long it would just normally take. That's how big the Elder Scrolls Arena is. Way bigger than the more recent Elder Scrolls games, albeit much worse graphical fidelity and things like that. It's easier to have a bigger world with how that game is versus having an infinite world that's not procedurally generated in Skyrim, for example. But obviously the more modern games don't do this. They focus in on one of the provinces of Tamriel. Daggerfall is a little bit in that same vein, where a lot of that world is procedurally generated versus when we went right over to Morrowind after Daggerfall, Morrowind was a fully handcrafted world and fully handcrafted experience. So as that successor to those previous games, it is aiming to have a lot of procedural generation with over 100 different islands to explore, with the main focus not necessarily being on a handcrafted story or handcrafted quest, but more of an unpredictable experience, with anything really being able to happen with the different islands that you explore and being able to be ultimately replayable. But the focus here is going to be on a dynamic world on top of this generation for the environments. The entire world is set to be ever-changing constantly as you're going through it, with tons of different races and factions all vying for power. And as you go through the game, you're going to be encountering all of these different factions fighting each other. You're going to be encountering tons of different magical beasts and enemies, and you're going to be encountering multiple different races that live in this world as well, like the humans, the elves, the dwarves, and even more. And that whole idea of all of these fighting in this ever-changing world and having ultimate replayability between all of the decisions you have to make between who you're siding with and who you're not siding with and what that's going to end up looking like could be extremely cool. Now, normally I don't love procedurally generated worlds. I think they can lack impact, but in this day and age, I think if done well with a ton of different decisions, with a ton of different dynamic events, with being able to choose and side with certain factions over another, I think this could work super well and could be really cool, and like I mentioned before, be extremely replayable. One of the coolest ways that they're doing this is by this AI called the Virtual Game Master, which I really haven't seen in another game. And basically what it's going to do, it's going to tailor quests, tailor world events and interactions and decisions you have to make to you and how you're actually currently playing the game. In addition to this, there's going to be very in-depth RPG mechanics and progression. In addition to that, all of those 100 islands I was talking about, yeah, you can actually hop on a boat and travel to all of those islands yourself. And as someone who is a huge fan of pirate games and pirates in general, I cannot wait to hop on a boat and sail to these different islands. It looks absolutely incredible. The combat is supposed to be more in-depth than Skyrim, for example, less in-depth than Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, but you're going to be able to build your own archetype by the way that you want to play. There's not going to be a specific class system here. Now, in addition to this, if you want to use magic, yes, there is going to be spellcrafting in this game. There's even supposed to be NPCs with different motivations and different jobs in their own daily life that could potentially change depending on you as the player and your actions and choices that you make. There's even going to be an extensive crafting system for all of your different weapons and, again, your spells. And on top of this, this is going to translate even over to things like transportation, like your ship. You can customize that ship that you take to all of these different islands. Now, obviously, this game is still in early development, so we don't have a ton of specifics about all of this different stuff. However, I'm very excited going into the future to be able to learn more about this game and see what they're cooking up here. Because as I mentioned earlier, Ted Peterson, Julian LeFay, these lead developers on Daggerfall and Arena, they know what they're doing. They've done it before, and they deserve our attention with this more modern take and more dynamic take on these games that they made way back in the day. And honestly, as a kid who got into RPGs because of the Elder Scrolls Oblivion, that was my first open world RPG I ever played. I didn't think that stuff was possible back when I was a kid, and I absolutely loved it. And that was also my entrance into the Elder Scrolls franchise as a whole. I've tried to go back and play some of these older games. I played Morrowind, for example. Obviously, an absolute banger, and I loved it, but it still had more of that modern philosophy. Now, I even tried to go back and play Arena and Daggerfall, and I did enjoy what I played there as well, and I honestly always wanted a successor to those games to see what it would look like if it was put in more of that modern graphics, or if it was put more in that modern development where it was more dynamic. It still was procedural, but it had that dynamic world around it on top of that. Now, I would love to hear down below in the comments what you guys think about this game. Have you heard of it? Is this your first time hearing about it? Are you excited for something that's procedurally generated? I know a lot of people kind of are standoffish on that. A lot of times I am as well, but this game has all of that dynamic stuff to it as well that I think could actually make it an incredible RPG experience regardless of that procedural generation or not. I think that might be actually needed for the goals that they're trying to achieve here. But let me know how you guys think about that. Let me know what you think about everything else as well. Are you excited for things like spellcrafting or sailing to these different islands on a boat that can be customized and crafted? That stuff sounds extremely cool to me. Let me know down in the comments below what you guys think about all of this. For my new viewers, thank you so much for watching the video. Please like and subscribe if you did like what you see here. And for my returning viewers, thank you guys for the support. Please like this video if you like the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace!